Okay. So, may as well start at the beginning.
Yes.
When you were a graduate student
Yes.
before the war, right?
Yes. I was a graduate student at Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I was expecting to go on one of the projects at the university, either the radar or the bomb, which is both of which were beginning subjects of research at the university. But nothing much happened, so I asked Oliphant, who was the chief professor there, what was happening, and he said, "Oh, I can't use you because you're useless without Piles, and Piles hasn't got a clearance.
Oh, okay.
So he can't do anything."
Oh, your professor didn't have a clearance. Yep.
Mm-hmm. He said, "Why don't you go and join the Navy?" So foolishly, I went to the naval place and immediately met a man called Brundrett, who was the head of the scientific section of the Navy. We took an instant dislike to each other. But nevertheless, I took a job from him, which was to go out to Singapore to install some equipment in the jungle around Singapore, which would monitor Japanese ships.
Okay, so this was when?
This was in 40.
In 40, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Is that it? 40? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I trained on building this equipment at Hazelmere, which is a very pleasant place in England.
Okay.
So I had a nice time there. Good squash courts, nice girls. And it was a beautiful summer. You could. It was in. I was located in Hazelmere, which is on near the south coast.
Oh, it's near the south coast. Okay.
And I could see the German planes flying overhead to bomb London.
Oh, okay. So that was sort of
the very beginning of the war.
Battle of Britain time.
Battle of Britain stuff.
Okay.
Yes,
so you were actually.
I watched that from
Hazelmere.
From not from Hazelmere, from Winchester.
Okay.
Which is a very pleasant place. Anyway, that was nice, and finally I finished the instruction on building the machine, and I went off to Malaya.
Yeah.
For a long trip around South Africa, where we took a trip across the bottom of South Africa on our own. And picked up the ship later.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you landed in one port and got back on the ship at a different one? Okay.
Yeah.
Went overland. How did you do that? Did you have a car or a
No, we rented a car.
Oh, okay.
And then we went on to Singapore. Singapore, of course, I found there was absolutely nothing there. The entire dockyards and stores had been looted by somebody.
Oh, no.
They were looted by the people, of course, who were in charge of the stores, who sold everything off to their
oh, dear.
Probably because nobody thought seriously there'd ever be a war anywhere near Singapore.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, so, of course, the stuff I wanted didn't arrive. I expected to be there a month or two doing this job. But the first consignment, half of it was sunk by a U-boat, and so I had to wait for the other stuff to come out. In the meantime, I had plenty of time to observe the island. And, as I saw, there was absolutely nothing there. No stores at all. It was full of admirals, but no troops. And,
bug.
And in general, it wasn't really in a very warlike situation. Also, it was a very boring place. It had beautiful parks. They were great, I must admit, done by some person who knew what they were doing, knew how to take full advantage of the fact that anything would grow in the tropics. But everything else was pretty bad, including Raffles, the famous
Raffles. Yeah, I was surprised when I heard that story.
But anyway, so I had to wait until the next boat arrived. In the meantime, I tried to get stores from bits from Manila, the nearest American base.
Yeah.
And I pulled over the coals for that. This was secret stuff not to be divulged to anyone, etc. But anyway, finally the stuff did arrive. Incidentally, I had to set this up in the jungle. There was a hut which was electrically neutral. In other words, it had wire all around it.
Okay.
And and aerials and so on. It had 4 Sikh guards, and it was operated by 4 officers' wives who ran the equipment. Anyway.
This was out in the middle of nowhere?
In the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
Yes, but it was near of course, there was a tiny naval base nearby.
So
not the main one, but just
it was
a little one
on the coast.
No, a little one in the jungle.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so once we got the stuff, it was easy to put up because there was a very intelligent Piotel there who ran it up, who built the stuff without any interference from me. And also, he also was very useful because he ran the cricket club in Singapore, so he had great influence everywhere.
He knew everybody.
Anyway, I finished the job and then left with much grumbling from the CEO of the place and went back to England. Of course, I was soon followed by the whole establishment because the Japanese immediately invaded.
Oh dear.
Once I left, and everyone was evacuated back to England.
So you were sort of one boat ahead of everybody else?
I was one boat ahead of everybody else. So they all got back, except unfortunately the CO, was a young guy, he lost his legs in the blackout as soon as he got back to England in a car crash.
Oh dear. So he made it back to England, but that didn't work out for him.
It didn't work out for him, yes. Okay. Yeah. So...
Did you have a friend or acquaintance that was captured by the Japanese?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So somebody that was... Were they in Singapore, or was this a
in
separate...
Singapore.
Okay.
No, in Singapore I had a friend from Leamington Spa, the local barber's son, was captured in Malaya after I'd left, of course. And also Sheila, who was Maureen's best friend, Sheila's boyfriend was captured. Also, but of course Sheila left with her father when they evacuated the naval people. What else happened? Oh yeah, there was a very nice physicist and his family in Malaya that I knew. They were captured by the Japanese, but fortunately they all survived.
Okay.
Anyway, I got back to England, and it was a different England from the one I'd left a few months before. It was very grungy, the blackout. All the restaurants had disappeared. All the foreigners had disappeared. Just before that, I mean, when I'd gone out, England was a great place to be. They had all these refugees. They'd set up...
all the people from Europe that had come,
set up cafes all around the main street, and set up orchestras.
So it was quite bustling for a while.
Quite bustling for a while, yes. That had all vanished.
And it all became very grim.
And everything had become very grim. So anyway, so then I got back there and I was sent immediately to the Admiralty in London to work in the Citadel, which is the headquarters for the fleet.
Yeah.
Which is, 5 stories below the surface or something,
Okay.
under Whitehall.
Yeah.
That was a gruesome place because my job was to one of the 4 operators in charge of the submarine watch, and our duty was. I also had the added duty of trying to determine the positions of submarines with greater accuracy than the other people had managed. Yeah. And we used decoding, so we knew which was on and off.
Right.
To know where the submarines were, and if they were, once coding wasn't working, we had to extrapolate.
You had to just sort of guess, yeah.
And we had to reroute the convoys to avoid the submarines. Yep. That was a horrible job because it was so with dreadful losses. It was very poor, the whole thing. And very discouraging because we were losing practically all of them. They were too slow, and there was no weaponry. Negligible Canadian corvettes, which had 1 gun. Yeah, they were just useless. Anyway, that was very depressing work.
So that's the place that is that near the Churchill's headquarters?
Yeah, that was
museum
near Churchill.
There.
That was near Churchill headquarters. Yes.
Okay.
We didn't see Churchill. His emissary there used to send the king in once a week, and the king would come and listen dutifully to the report. The report, incidentally, was given by Fleming, who wrote all that series.
The Ian Fleming, yeah.
And he was a good storyteller then.
Okay, so he would...
Because he put a good gloss on things.
So Ian Fleming was telling the king about the horribly depressing losses.
No, except that he
would make a good story out of it.
Successful week, whereas I'd be as depressed as hell by the end of the week.
Yep.
And so anyway, that went on, and I couldn't figure out why they didn't put it. They kept on sending the battleships out of the fleet, but of course they were just targets for the German planes, so they always came back again. Why didn't they make a serious attempt to put something against the U-boats? They did, of course.
Eventually.
But what they were doing was mainly better means of dodging and dodging instead of crushing.
Yeah, instead of actually going after them. Yeah.
Well, of course. Anyway, that lasted for a year and a half. It was very depressing, despite my friend, whom we used to go out drinking with every night, and whose main problem during the war was that the pubs shut at 9, and you couldn't always get into the nightclubs.
Well, so he was more depressed about that than the work.
He didn't bother much about the war, no, or anything else. Anyway, I finally got transferred at some point to Bletchley Park.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Now, Bletchley Park, not only was I transferred there, but I transferred at a point where the war was changing. At last they had proper weapons. They had hunter-killer aircraft and surface craft that really hunt the submarines instead of
just running away from them.
To avoid them running away from them. They went out and searched for them and sank them. And so everything changed. That was it. And the other thing that changed was that a man called Tuttle, I didn't know about it until Sheila, till Maureen's friend.
Yes,
showed me the article in the New York Times that explained that really Tuttle did some of the high-class decoding.